On May 1, 2011, the beekeeper Kim and his son went up to a nearby quarry on Leah's recommendation. They find their car parked on the mountain road. They thought it was strange and looked around. There were 3 wooden crosses, and in the middle was a man who was nailed to death. This is the beginning of the crucifix murder. The person who died was taxi driver Park. His hands and feet were crucified, his body was scarred as if he had been whipped, and his right abdomen was cut with a knife. He wore only underwear and a wooden crown on his head. His body was found in an abandoned quarry. It was very similar to the hill of Golgotha where Jesus was crucified in the Bible. Then there were 2 more small wooden crosses on each side of the cross. It also seemed to represent 2 people who were nailed to death on both sides of Jesus. According to a police investigation, the owner of the car was Park who died. According to an employee who sold the car, Park called the employee directly when the car was shipped and said he would bring the car from the factory. This is in line with the Bible's phrase that Jesus brought a donkey that no one rode. Park also told his younger brother to put a white towel in the driver's seat after he got the car. This is consistent with the Bible verse that the disciples hung their outer garments on the donkey for Jesus. His death seemed to be a reproduction of Jesus' death. And not long away, a small tent was found that seemed to have lived temporarily. When the police first found him, everyone thought it was murder, because he had nails stuck in his hands and feet. However, an autopsy showed that his hands were pierced with a drill-like tool. It was also found to have been embedded in a nail on the cross that had already been embedded. They also find a picture of the cross in a nearby tent and a note on how to tie it. And his cross marked the hanging positions such as knees, waist, and bandage. And next to the cross was an object in case he failed. Since there were no witnesses at the time of the incident, the National Forensic Service reproduced the incident through 3D IO simulation. As a result, it is extremely low probability, but it is not impossible to cling to the cross. Eventually, they admitted this as suicide. But in this case, there are many questions. The first is about suicide. Hitting a nail into the palm of hand will lead to great pain. It also turned out to be a small manual drill, not an electric drill. And a tranquilizer was found in his belongings. So police suspected that he took the medicine and killed himself, but an autopsy found no drugs in his body. The other is about murder. His hands and feet did not hesitate at all. Human suicide always causes hesitation. For example, there are people who cut their wrists and killed themselves. Suicide can be successful after several attempts. If someone tries to kill himself by cutting his or her wrist several times, his or her wrist clearly shows signs of hesitation. It is human nature to hesitate. But he did not hesitate. He was also found to have been nailed into the crucifix, which had already been embedded. This can be suspected that he was helped by someone. Lastly, it is Lee's action. Lee suggested that beekeepers go to the quarry for the first time. He said there was a good place to raise bees and suggested going to the quarry together. What's unusual is that when he found the body, he took out the camera and filmed the scene rather than being surprised. According to a police investigation, he knew Park, who was already dead, and he had already met Park before he died. However, no investigation has been conducted into Lee, and the case ultimately concludes to be suicide. One day in 2011, the crucifixion left much doubt as a religious question, but the suicide ended. But it still leaves questions for many people.